verifiable NATO military material that indicated that the UFOs were not only real, but they represented something far beyond anything I had ever imagined before.
In the mid-1980s, a mechanical engineer named Dr. Norman Bergren published a book titled The Ring Makers of Saturn. Dr. Bergren had worked at NASA's Ames Research Center and then at Lockheed Martin's Missile and Space Division. He was respected for his skill with machines and for projects that ranged from rocket engine tests to space probe design. Yet his book made a bold claim that some of the features seen in the rings of Saturn were not just bits of ice and dust orbiting in narrow bands, but the marks of huge alien craft at work. The Voyager missions of the late 1970s had sent back the first close-up pictures of Saturn's rings. To most scientists, the images showed patterns caused by gravity and by tiny particles clumping together. Yet Dr. Bergren pointed to places where the rings appeared to stop in straight lines, or to have gaps that could not easily be explained by the known forces at work. In one early image, the edge of a faint ring ended abruptly, and Dr. Bergren saw what looked like a long, cylindrical object positioned right at the break. From this object, a thin streak of material seemed to extend into the gap, as though it were pushing or pulling ice grains into place. Later images, taken weeks or months afterward, showed that the gap had filled in, leading Dr. Bergren to suggest that the object had moved or operated long enough to finish the ring. Most planetary scientists at the time said these were optical illusions, or simply the way light reflected off varying concentrations of ice particles. They argued that small clumps of ice, stirred by the gravity of Saturn's moons, could create radial features and unexplained gaps. Yet Dr. Bergren, with his background in mechanical systems, insisted that the changes looked active, as if something had shaped them on purpose. He extended his idea to the rings around Uranus and Jupiter, both discovered after the Voyager flybys, suggesting that wherever a planet had rings, there might be ring makers at work. For decades, his theory lay largely ignored by mainstream researchers. Few took the time to re-examine the old images with his perspective in mind. Yet in 2017, roughly 30 years after his original book, Dr. Bergren resurfaced in interviews and online discussions. He renewed his call for scientists to look at the high-resolution images from the Cassini mission, which had orbited Saturn from 2004 to 2017. He pointed out that even Cassini's sharp cameras had shown thin, straight spokes in the rings, plus small, bright streaks that moved over time. He suggested that these might be the trails of exhaust, or energy usage by craft far larger than any human ship. He said that the cigar-shaped objects could be hundreds of miles long, moving slowly in distant orbits, gathering materials to keep the rings in place or to take them away. This claim caught the attention of a small group of amateurs and some independent researchers. They started to dig into the publicly available Cassini archive, pulling out frames where ring edges had sudden terminations or where bright spots appeared briefly before fading. Using contrast filters and basic image processing software, they highlighted straight lines that they argued no natural clump of ice could hold. Some made simple three-dimensional models based on shadow lengths, trying to place the possible craft's dimensions against the known tilt and lighting of the ring plane. While these efforts did not persuade the majority of planetary scientists, they did spark debate online, with supporters saying, "Look at the straight edges and sudden changes," while skeptics replied, "That's just scattering of sunlight by many small grains." At the same time, Dr. Bergren made his revival push. Another effort was gearing up to catch odd objects coming into our solar system from far beyond. Back in late 2017, astronomers had spotted the first confirmed interstellar object named Oumuamua. It arrived on a fast, unbound path, passed through the inner solar system, and left again, visible only for a few weeks before it receded into the darkness. By the time scientists realized what they were seeing, the object was already on its way out, too distant and moving too quickly for any probe to intercept. The data they gathered showed it had an elongated shape and that it sped up slightly as it left, a sign that something beyond gravity was pushing it. Outgassing from ice could explain that extra thrust, but scientists saw no comet-like tail, no sign of jets. This mystery led Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb to propose that Oumuamua might be an artificial object, a thin, sail-like probe pushed by sunlight. Dr. Loeb and a team of colleagues then announced the Galileo Project, named to honor Galileo's open-minded look at the skies of his time. The Galileo Project would place several small telescopes around Earth, each dedicated to spotting fast movers on hyperbolic trajectories, paths that never circle back to the sun. They proposed to add changes to existing survey telescopes, like the Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile, which is built to scan the sky for near-Earth objects. By fitting special high-speed cameras and real-time software, they believed the system could spot an interstellar visitor days or weeks earlier than current surveys. The goal was to get better images, measure the object's spectrum to find out what it was made of, and maybe even bounce radio signals off it to learn its shape. To power this work, the team said they would use machine learning. This means writing computer programs that can study millions of images in minutes, flagging anything that moves strangely. The programs would look for objects that speed up or slow down differently from the expected motion of solar system bodies. They would also check for changes in brightness that suggest rotation or shape changes. If the program spotted something odd, it would send an alert. Researchers around the world could then aim bigger telescopes, or even small satellites, to get closer looks before the visitor slipped away. While the Galileo project focused on objects moving through, another mission planned by the European Space Agency took a different tack. It was called Comet Interceptor, set to launch around 2028. The idea was to park 3 small spacecraft at a special spot in space known as L2, one of the Sun-Earth Lagrange points. At L2, about 1.5 million kilometers from Earth, the gravity of Earth and the Sun balance out so that a spacecraft can stay there with little fuel. From this vantage, the 3 interceptors would wait. When survey telescopes found a comet making its first trip into the inner solar system, the mission controllers would send the interceptors out to meet it. In a carefully timed maneuver, the 3 craft would split up and fly toward the target from different angles. Each would carry cameras and instruments to measure gas, dust, and the shape of the comet. In one coordinated move, they would surround the visitor, sending back 3-dimensional data that no single probe could achieve. The mission plan also noted that while the primary goal was to study comets that have never before passed near the Sun, the same approach could work for any unknown object on an unbound path. If a future interstellar visitor came close enough, the comet interceptor probes could chase after it, giving scientists a good look at its surface and what it was made of. In that way, the comet interceptor would fill the gap left by Oumuamua's quick departure, giving future researchers a better chance to catch a visitor while still close enough for detailed study. As news of these projects spread among space fans, reports of odd craft over Earth continued as well. In mid-August 2017, a series of bright lights appeared in the skies over San Diego. Local TV station NBC7 ran a story on it, showing fuzzy footage shot by residents. The shape and movement of the lights did not match any known meteor showers, which flash quickly across the sky in straight lines. Instead, these lights seemed to hover in formation, blink on and off, and move in odd ways. Some viewers described them as lanterns or drones, but their behavior did not fit either. Smartphones captured them, and pilots reported no flights on record. The footage was good enough that both local authorities and civilian UFO groups took notice, cataloging the event as unexplained. A few weeks later, a more dramatic mass sighting took place on a Mexican federal highway. Drivers on Highway 85D in the state of Nuevo León suddenly slammed on their brakes as dozens of vehicles came to a halt in bumper-to-bumper traffic. People poured out of their cars, pointing phones at the sky. Two separate clips surfaced online. The first, shot by a woman standing on her car's running board, zoomed in on a disc-shaped object hanging motionless above a rocky ridge. The second, filmed from a bit farther back, showed a gathering of stunned witnesses on the asphalt, all staring up at the same shiny disc. The object was at least 40 or 50 feet across, perfectly smooth, and at times seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. A dark spot on its underside looked like a hatch or a viewport. After several minutes, it lifted straight up, tilted slightly, and then shot away at a speed that left all the onlookers blinking. No drone, no helicopter, no known aircraft could match its silent vertical lift and instant acceleration. Mexican Air Force officials said they had no record of a flight permit in that area at that time. The videos were sent to both government and civilian researchers, many of whom called the highway sighting one of the most convincing ever recorded, given the multiple angles and the number of witnesses. Scientists now believe there's one place beyond Earth in our solar system that could support life: the moon Enceladus. Tucked under its icy crust is a global ocean with the chemicals needed for living organisms. But while Enceladus excites astrobiologists, another astonishing revelation has emerged from U.S. Army files. For the first time, they have declassified NASA footage showing what appears to be a 2,000-mile-long unidentified flying object hovering near Saturn. The images come from NASA's most advanced telescopes and satellites, and the Army's release has set off a firestorm of questions. Is this massive craft an experimental U.S. government vehicle, or is it an alien spaceship? Former U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major Robert Dean, who served at NATO headquarters from 1963 to 1967, has long claimed that the military knows more about alien encounters than the public does. In 1964, he wrote a paper for NATO looking at what would happen if extraterrestrials showed up on Earth. Decades later, at a 1989 conference marking Roswell's 50th anniversary, he said he was aware of 4 different alien species interacting with humanity, and that number had grown to more than a dozen by the time he retired. He even hinted there might be over 100 distinct alien groups watching us. Dean described one group that looked almost human. They mingled easily with people at airports, restaurants, and theaters, and at the height of the Cold War, this raised genuine concern that they could have infiltrated the Pentagon or even the White House. He believed these visitors shared enough traits with us that they could walk among us unnoticed. More remarkably, he suggested these beings could manipulate time and matter and came from other dimensions, ideas drawn from physicists who speak of up to 10 dimensions beyond our familiar 3 of space and 1 of time. In 2009, at a summit in Barcelona, Dean showed photographs he said NASA astronauts had taken during the Apollo 12 mission. One image allegedly showed a circular object hundreds of feet across, floating near the moon. Dean argued that this and other experiences proved our world was on the brink of a radical shift in understanding, a shift that would reshape science, politics, and society. He even claimed that one alien race had visited Earth 200,000 years ago and altered our DNA, setting the stage for modern humans. Robert Dean passed away in 2018, but his stories still fuel debates about government secrecy and our place in the cosmos. Meanwhile, our robotic emissaries into deep space have been gathering invaluable data. In 1977, NASA launched Voyager 2 on a mission that would take it past Jupiter and Saturn, then onto Uranus and Neptune. Today, Voyager 2 is more than 12 billion miles from Earth, still sending back measurements of the heliopause, the boundary where solar wind gives way to interstellar space. Voyager 1, its twin, holds the record as the furthest human-made object ever built. Both spacecraft carried the golden record, a time capsule of Earth sounds, music, and images. Their success inspired follow-up missions like Cassini, which studied Saturn and its moons for over a decade. Cassini made a stunning discovery on Enceladus, plumes of water ice and vapor shooting out from cracks near its south pole. An instrument on board detected sodium phosphates, key building blocks of life in those plumes, showing concentrations much higher than those in Earth's oceans. This finding, published in the journal Nature, suggested Enceladus's hidden ocean could support life. Cassini also found methane, hydrogen, and carbon dioxide, hinting at chemical processes similar to those around Earth's deep-sea vents, where microbes thrive. While Cassini studied Enceladus, it also turned its cameras on Saturn's rings. During the equinox, on August 11th of a recent year, sunlight shone edge-on to the rings, casting a sharp shadow of a 25-mile-long moonlet onto the main B-ring. The sight was breathtaking and fueled wild speculation that the shadow might belong to a hidden spaceship. But planetary scientists explain it simply. Any object in the ring plane casts a long, narrow shadow when the sun sits in the ring's plane every 15 years. Still, some voices in the UFO community point to these shadow events and say there's more than meets the eye. One of the most persistent is former NASA engineer Dr. Norman Bergren. He worked at Ames Research Center and later for Lockheed Martin, helping design rockets and probes. In 1986, he published The Ring Makers of Saturn, claiming that some Voyager photos showed massive cylindrical objects, hundreds of miles long, actively shaping the rings. He argued these ring makers used energy to sculpt or repair ring segments. In 2016 and 2017, he restated his views, pointing to faint linear features and straight edges in Cassini images that he believed were evidence of alien vehicles. Mainstream scientists counter that ice and dust under the influence of gravity and electromagnetic forces can create similar patterns. Back on Earth, the U.S. government has also turned serious attention to unexplained aerial sightings. Since 2004, the Pentagon has logged over 500 reports of unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP. Many are easily explained: balloons, drones, atmospheric effects, but some defy any conventional explanation. One of the best-known incidents took place in 2004 off the California coast, when Navy pilots from the USS Nimitz encountered a tic-tac-shaped object hovering above the sea. Lieutenant Commander David Fravor and his wingman, Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich, chased it at supersonic speeds. But the object matched their maneuvers and then vanished in seconds, reappearing miles away. Fravor described it to a congressional hearing in 2021, saying it moved in ways beyond any known aircraft. Ryan Graves, another Navy pilot, and intelligence officer David Grush have since supported Fravor's account. They testified that these phenomena are real and recorded by multiple sensors, including radar, infrared, and visual confirmation. The Pentagon's Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force has released some of the data, but many details remain classified. One particularly striking photo, described by Luis Elizondo, who led the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, shows a black triangular craft emerging from the ocean. Elizondo said the pilots who took the photo served on carriers like the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, and USS John C. Stennis. The triangle, with rounded edges and lights at each corner, appeared suddenly, hovered for a time, then sank back into the water. The Navy has never officially confirmed it, but the image circulates among UAP investigators as a top example of unexplained submersible and aerial capability. In 2014, an ordinary man named John Shepard and his wife were camping when they saw lights dance in the sky above them. They recorded them on video, bright orbs moving in tight formations, then speeding off at impossible velocities. Shepard shared his footage with local news, and while skeptics argued what he saw was a drone show or military exercise, he insisted it was something else entirely. All these accounts, ancient and modern, point to a single truth. We have not yet solved the mystery of who or what might be watching us, either from deep space or from just above our heads. On one hand, robotic missions like Voyagers and Cassini are revealing worlds we once thought inhospitable, and in the case of Enceladus, worlds that may just be capable of supporting life. On the other, credible military and civilian witnesses are reporting objects that fly in ways our technology cannot match. At the same time, researchers argue about whether blurred ring images or fleeting lights over highways are evidence of extraterrestrial technology, unknown physics, or simply misinterpreted natural phenomena. Governments are starting to acknowledge the questions, releasing footage and opening investigations, but they also caution against jumping to alien conclusions. So where does that leave us? With more questions than answers. Are those 2,000-mile anomalies near Saturn's secret craft, optical quirks, or something else we haven't imagined yet? Is Enceladus a living world, or just a geochemical curiosity? Are the tic-tacs and black triangles leftover military prototypes, or genuine vehicles from another world?